Hard to believe it's beginning of year 12 for our staff here, but I'm as excited about Colorado basketball today as I was when I was hired here, May of, I think, 2010. So anyway, I'm excited about this team. We're going to have a young team, a very unusual team in terms of our makeup, with 2 seniors and 10 underclassmen. Obviously, our walk-ons are a big part of our program. Ben Ursek and Will Laughlin are our 2 walk-on seniors, but Evan and Eli are the scholarship guys that we're going to rely on a lot this year, those 4 kids. And then, but we've got 10 of our 12 scholarship players that have never played in front of a college crowd, and that's a lot. So obviously the sophomores last year with COVID didn't get a chance to play in front of fans. They're going to get that opportunity this year, thank goodness, and as our freshmen are. So this is going to be a team that's going to be a work in progress. We will not be at our best November the 9th. I'm hopeful we'll be better then than we were today in practice, and the way we've been here the last week or so. This is a talented group of young players that we're going to have to get to grow up quickly, as this season unfolds. So there's going to be some adversity, some headwinds that'll hit us, and that's when we're going to rely on our leadership with Evan and Eli and Bennett and Will to help us get through that. But excited about the program and where we're at, and certainly where we're going.
Yeah, you just raise your hand. I'll go ahead and call you for questions. Joe, go ahead.
Coach, I talked to you a few weeks ago, and nice to see you again.
Good to see you.
I thought it was a pretty decent practice, but I'm not one of the coaches. How important is the defensive side of the ball this year? I talked to Eli Parquet a little while ago, and I thought that's kind of his calling card, and I think that's a lot of these guys' calling cards. Everybody wants to score, but, I think the defensive side, especially in tournament play, is so important. How much are you going to emphasize that this year?
Like every year, a lot. I mean, and that's one of the things I talked to our team about today at the end of practice is we have to prepare for games and for nights when the shot's not going in, and it's happened in practice. Young players usually identify with their jump shot, going in or not going in, or scoring the ball or not scoring the ball. And that's why Eli and Evan, who are seniors, who understand that defense is such a big part of what we do, and it's half the game, if not more so, limiting the other team from getting easy baskets and good shots, making them work for everything we get. Again, we've never pitched a shutout here. We're not going to shut anybody out, but we got to prepare to win games on nights when our offense isn't clicking, and because that will happen, and especially with a young team, that will happen. So we've got to be able to rely on that, the defensive side of the ball, and rebounding the basketball at a high level. And our young guys don't have a grasp of that yet, and that's the challenge that I have as a coach right now.
Tad, you mentioned the makeup of this team and 10 guys that haven't really played in front of crowds. Does that put a different emphasis or importance on the preseason games, maybe especially the one at Nebraska?
It does, and that's the reason why we agreed to the Nebraska scrimmage and charity game. They'll return it next year, but for this year's team, we need that. It's also why I didn't schedule a lot of games away from the Coors Event Center, early in November and December, because I know, in the league we're going to get 10 away from our home in league play, and then obviously we got the Virgin Islands tournament. So we'll get enough road experience, but we're going to have to figure out, and that Nebraska game will be a great test to see where we are in that regard. And then the Virgin Islands, and obviously our opening conference game against UCLA and LA, we'll find out there as well.
All right.
One of those 10 guys, true freshman Julian Hammond, he probably hasn't played in front of a crowd in a while, but
Right.
He played football in front of huge crowds for those games. Do you think that may have prepared him, and really what have you seen from him in these practices so far?
Yeah, Julian, I think the longer he is here, is getting more and more comfortable, more and more confident. He's done some really nice things. I thought he played really well in Costa Rica on that trip. And one of the things Julian and I have talked about is the fact this is the first time in his career where he's been able to concentrate on basketball, all summer and all fall. And I think that's really going to benefit him this winter. You know, usually he's on the football field, and that's been great. I mean, and playing football at Cherry Creek, you know, for Dave Logan, and has prepared him well in terms of being a competitor and his toughness level and that. But it's exciting to look at his ceiling as a basketball player now that football's out of the equation. And Julian's going to be a terrific player at Colorado before it's all said and done. Does some really, really nice things.
Jake was talking to
Hey.
was talking to Jabari, and he said that Evan's really been on him about keeping his energy up, not getting down on himself. What are your expectations for Jabari? Obviously, he had a great NCAA tournament. He could be a big part of scoring the ball. So, what do you sort of see from him?
Yeah, the expectations we have is that he becomes an everyday guy. And last year he didn't have to do that because we had so many seniors with, you know, Jariah Horn and Deshaun Schwartz and McKinley Wright and Dallas Walton. You know, he was able to be that freshman that, you know, came in and gave us a spark off the bench, and he was really good at that. You look at Jabari's numbers last year relative to the minutes he played, and he's very efficient, and he impacted the game when he was in there. But he got in foul trouble some, and he was a catch-and-shoot guy. Now we're challenging him to be more of a well-rounded player and impact the game in different ways other than just shooting the ball, you know, from the perimeter. We know he can do that. He's a good shooter. He knows that. We know that. His opponents are going to know that. So how does he impact the game in terms of rebounding and blocking shots and making plays for others and driving closeouts? Those are the kind of things we're talking about Jabari. But we need Jabari to be an everyday guy, and consistency is going to be his biggest challenge, going from a freshman to a sophomore, and going from a role player to a guy that we're counting on night in and night out to produce and perform. He's fully capable of it, without a doubt.
Jack, go ahead.
Obviously, a lot of new faces this year, but how much do you think the experience of playing in the Pac-12 title game and getting 2 games in the NCAA tournament, how much do you think that kind of bleeds into this year?
I hope it bleeds in. You know, every year's a different year. It's a different team, and this is a totally different team because we graduated so much production, and we've got so many new faces. We're going to need some of those sophomores to step up without a doubt, and we're going to need some of those freshmen to play minutes without a doubt, and that's really going to be the question mark with this team. So I'm hopeful that, you know, if we're able to get back to, you know, we know we're going to be in the Pac-12 tournament, but if we're able to get back to, you know, that level, it's going to be a long road for these young guys, and they're going to, again, have to grow up quickly and learn quickly and adapt quickly. But I love our talent level, I really do, and I love our youthful exuberance. But boy, the experience factor is really dwindled with this team. When we flip from last year to this year. But, again, that's where Evan and Eli, we're going to rely on those guys a lot.
You got Eric, and then we'll go with Justin right after Eric.
Hey, Tad. Obviously, big shoes to fill, the loss of McKinley Wright. Keyshawn, your most experienced returning guy in that position. Do you see him embracing the challenge of filling that role? And I guess just talk about the challenge that does face a guy like
Yeah,
Keyshawn.
no, absolutely. McKinley's loss is a big one. But we also know Keyshawn is fully capable. I thought he did some really good things last year in some tough situations. Keyshawn had the most difficult role on our team last year, backing up McKinley. He didn't know if he was going to play or how much he was going to play. And there was times where McKinley went down with, you know, what we thought was a concussion, and he came back. You know, Keyshawn filled in, I thought, admirably when he was called upon. But he just didn't get the significant minutes that he needed to prove what he can do. He's going to get that this year. So he's capable, much like Jabari's capable. But I don't want to put it all on him. We've got 2 freshman guards in KJ Simpson and Julian Hammond who are fully capable as well of running the team and playing the point. So I look at it as a 3-headed monster, and some of those guys will play together in the backcourt. We can play with a 3-guard lineup, you know, with Eli, Keyshawn, and either KJ or Julian, or KJ, Julian, and Eli at the 3. This team's going to have a lot of versatility. We can go big and play Tristan at the 3 with Jabari and Evan. So that's the nice thing about coaching this team. Now it's up to me to figure out, you know, what makes the most sense on a given night and given how guys are playing. But we've got 3 capable point guards. I don't want to put it all on Keyshawn's shoulders, but Keyshawn is the most experienced and the guy we're expecting probably the most from. But we're going to need KJ and Julian to give us minutes at times this year, without a doubt, and production.
Tad, probably sooner rather than later, Evan Batty is going to be the 4th member of that 2017 recruiting class to eclipse 1,000 points in college. We've got a lot of firepower with this incoming 2021 class. Just how do you feel that you have been recruiting lately here at CU over the last few years? And what is kind of your elevator pitch to kids on why they should play basketball at the University of Colorado?
Well, I think in the landscape of college basketball, with the transfer portal that we're all aware of, it's been well documented. We know it's here to stay. It's not going. The genie's not going back in the bottle, right? So we are a recruit and develop program. You know, you look at the 12 guys on our roster; they were all recruited as freshmen, and they've developed. You look at Eli's development. You look at Evan's development. That's why the sophomores, you know, turning the page from their freshman year as sophomore, their ability to step up. And every kid, you know, has their own kind of path that they have to lead. But when we recruit, we have to evaluate guys that are not going to duck out of this program at the first sign of adversity, because it's going to hit us. And if we got guys looking for the transfer portal, we have not recruited the right guys. And it's something we talk about in recruiting. It's something that if we face head on, we're not shying away from it. It doesn't mean we won't lose anybody to the transfer portal. It just means we want guys that are here, that want to be Buffaloes, that want to be Evan Batty and Eli Parquet someday. Because the thing about those 2 kids is they're Buffs through and through. They own this program. They're what I want all of our freshmen and sophomore to achieve to be. And if we can accomplish that goal with the majority of them, this program will continue to ascend and compete for championships and have success. And that's, you know, I said it again. I opened up, you know, I got the job 11 years ago, and I talked then about becoming a national program and sustaining it. And that's what we've tried to do. And I think we've done it in many respects, but there's still a lot of work to be done. You know, we still need to get to that second weekend in the NCAA tournament, and we know that, and not shying away from that. So that's something we talk about as well. It's time to take the next step. Now, this year's team, we'll see, but I think the foundation is laid for the immediate future of Colorado basketball. But I want the future to be now. I don't want the future to be next year, and we're approaching this season, you know, with that goal in mind.
Mark, and then you after Mark.
Dan, you talked about going from a veteran team to a young team, and I'm wondering, you know, the challenge of, you know, making sure those guys know where to go to class, and learning your culture, learning your plays and all that. Is the toughest challenge for you as a coach, though, to get a young team to understand the commitment, the intensity that they're about ready to face?
Absolutely. And that's exactly what we talked about in practice today. Like, right now, we're 2 weeks into practice. It was practice 15 today. They're thinking, when's the first game? That's on their mind. My thinking is, how are we going to, you know, beat Colorado School of Mines in our first exhibition next Wednesday? Because, you know, I'm going to remind these guys, the last time we played the School of Mines in an exhibition game, we were down 4-6 at halftime. We had 2 4-year starters and a first-round draft pick on that team. Our guys have no idea what's in front of them. You know, the old adage, they don't know what they don't know. That's what's happening with this year's team. It's my job to help try to prepare them and do it realistically. I don't want to blow smoke and tell them that, you know, the School of Mines is the best team we're going to play this year, because we know that's not the case. But they're a solid team, and they're going to expose some of our weaknesses. And Nebraska's going to expose some of our weaknesses. How quickly can we shore those things up and get better and learn from the things that happen to us on the floor? Because basketball is such a fluid game, as you guys know. It's up and down and up and down. You don't have a lot of time in the heat of the moment to change a lot of things, other than maybe your offenses or your lineups. But other than that, man, you better learn from day to day. And our sense of urgency and our it's not easy being good. And that's the other thing the message I'm trying to get to our young guys. They think they're good because they're talented and they were highly recruited, but they're going to find out. It's not easy.
So as you mentioned, you're playing School of Mines next week, and you want your men are really excited to go out and play. But for you, what are you going to be evaluating and looking for in that first game?
I'm just going to be evaluating, are you able to play to the standards that we've set forth? Are you able to do your job? If your job is to rebound, are you rebounding? If your job is to, crash the boards offensively, are you crashing the boards? Or are you executing your part of the play? Are you doing your job? That's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for guys that want to do their jobs, possession in, possession out. Not once every 3 possessions or every other possession, but every possession. And I've got to find 5 guys that are – I have confidence that Eli and Evan understand that and are going to be able to do that. Not that they're perfect. They're not perfect players, but they understand we need some other guys to get to that point. And that's what I'm going to be looking for in both of our exhibition games.
Ted, a couple weeks into the preseason now, a couple weeks ago until the lights really come on, it sounded like you weren't too happy with today's practice. But at this stage of the preseason, especially with the young guys, is there maybe naturally a mental wall at this stage of the game you kind of have to power through?
There is, and it's my job as a coach to help them power through it. And again, don't lower the standards and don't, we're not going to make excuses, and we're not going to let other people make excuses for us. We're gonna call it like it is, and today's practice was not a good one. Naturally speaking, there's no doubt that every team in America is fighting it now. I think if you talk to any basketball coach, they're fighting it. The players are thinking the same thing. So it's natural, but part of what we do is to fight human nature. And right now I'm fighting human nature for the next 2.5 weeks, without a doubt. I'm fighting it, and I'll be fighting it tomorrow and Friday, Saturday, and Sunday when we practice. But that's my job, and that's what I'm going to do. So I'm not going to let them off the hook and tell them they're doing great when they're not doing great. But I've also told myself, and I have to remind myself, that I'm going to have a little bit more patience with this year's team. And I have to find a balance between patience and not lowering standards. That's going to be critical for me to do my job as best I can. And patience, especially if you ask my wife, is probably not one of my strong suits. So,
Tad, kind of right on that same note, perhaps you'd agree that from your vantage point as a coach, there's differences coaching a 4-year starter like McKinley Wright as opposed to an incoming freshman like KJ Simpson. But at this point in the preseason, have you kind of figured out the walking the tightrope of wanting to coach those freshmen hard, but not maybe understanding a guy like Julian or KJ as you did 4-year guys like Deshaun or McKinley?
There's no doubt that I don't understand them as well yet, and I think the same is true. I don't think they understand me yet either. I think they're figuring me out as much as I'm figuring them out, and that's just part of the process, that we go. But I've told our freshmen, I've told Julian, I've told KJ, I've told Javon, I've told Lawson. Obviously, Quincy's not playing this year, so he's got a different set of challenges. But those 4 guys, I've told them, I am not going to coach you like a typical freshman. Because last year, let's say Tristan, Neek, Luke, Jabari, they were typical freshmen last year because they had a bunch of seniors that I could rely on, and I didn't, they could just be freshmen, and they could play well and not play well, and it didn't really affect what was going to – obviously you want them all to play well when they get their opportunity, but we didn't need those guys like we need some of them. We don't need all 4 of them this year, but we need a couple of them to step up and be ready when their number's called. And that's difficult because they're all coming. Every one of them was the best player on their high school team. So they're going through the transition that all freshmen do. The difference is we need a couple of those guys to step up and play minutes. So I have to coach those guys harder than I coach a normal freshman. So that's a change I have to make, and then they've got to be able to handle it. And whether they can or can't is yet to be seen. But I think they will. I think they're all good kids. They're all very coachable. They all want to play. So we all want the same thing. It's just who's going to be able to up their game, and that's what we're in the process of figuring out.
Your staff, Coach Ron, Coach Ray, You know, I know Coach Greer. I mean, with the young team, I know they're important every year, but I think this year I saw a lot of really great coaching going out there besides you. Talk a little bit about your staff.
Absolutely. My staff is one, and obviously Zach Rubinson is our new member, and he was a manager for us, so he knows the culture of Colorado basketball and what we're preaching every day. But, yeah, Rick Ray, Mike Rohn, and Bill Greer have all been head coaches. And they're all really good at what they do. They can teach the game. They know the game. They're good communicators. So this is a year where their job is going to be called upon to teach and coach, again, a little bit just like mine, you know, with a young team. We're going to be doing a lot more of that than we had to last year. We have to get more reps in practice this year than we did last year. When you have seniors who've kind of been there, done that, and been through the war, so to speak, I'm not saying you take your foot off the gas. It just they know, you know, what is down the pike and coming down the pike. Our freshmen don't know, and our sophomores, you know, again, Tristan and Jabari, who played a lot, they don't know yet, and Neek and Luke don't know. So our staff is going to be called upon this year. I think all of us, myself and assistants included. You know, our trainer, he's dealing with young guys who maybe don't know quite how to fight through the bumps and bruises that they're going to get and they've gotten. Our strength coach, we're all in the same boat. We're all dealing with young guys who we've got to kind of coach through and manage through, you know, a difficult, long college basketball season. But we're no different than everybody else. We all are faced with the same challenge, right?
When the season tickets went out, you included a letter asking fans not to sell their tickets to Kansas fans, and I know we're getting down the road here in about 2 months, but I guess talk about the genesis of why you did that, and what would it mean to you and your team if you were able to limit the amount of Jayhawk fans in the building?
Well, the genesis is, look, I've coached in the building my first year here. We were in the Big 12 before we had kind of established ourselves where there were more Kansas fans in the building that should have been. Then I also coached in a game a few years ago when we beat them, and there were some Kansas fans. There's going to be some Kansas fans here. We know that, but it was 98% Buff fans, and it helped us win a game, you know. And I want our season ticket holders to understand, number one, we're making a commitment to you to allow you to buy extra tickets to this game to make sure that they get in Buffalo's hands, whether it's your friend or neighbor or whatever. And we're asking and begging and pleading and guilting, whatever you want to say, that you don't put them on StubHub and sell them to the Jayhawk fans. Now, whether they'll do that or not, you know, we'll see. But one of the most embarrassing moments of my tenure here as a college football fan was when Nebraska had 55% of the stadium when we played them a few years ago. That was embarrassing to me. It was embarrassing to all of us, I think. And we don't want that. I don't want that to happen with the and that, look, it's nothing against Kansas. Look, that's my alma mater, but I'm a Buffalo, and I coach the Buffaloes, and I want the Buffaloes to win that game, and I want the Buffaloes to have a great home court advantage, like I know we play against NIL Fieldhouse when we did 2 years ago and got our hats handed to us. So that's going to be a hard enough game, you know, as a coach and players. I just ask our fans to join in the fight.
Tad, a couple of years ago, when you recruited Tristan da Silva, I remember you saying that you thought you had something special there. And, you know, watching him last year play his limited minutes, I fell in love with his game. Talk about his progression and maturation, and how he becomes a more important part of this team.
Oh, absolutely. And look, Jabari, we all know how talented he is and what kind of a scorer he is, and he's a terrific player, and we're going to need him to step up. But I always put Tristan right in there with Jabari because he is a guy who can play multiple positions offensively. He can guard multiple positions defensively. He's got a great pace about him. We always talk to our guys about what can you do to affect the game and help your team win when you're not scoring the ball. Tristan da Silva can do a lot of things, you know, handling the ball, passing the ball. We're challenging him every day to rebound the ball stronger and tougher. He can put the ball on the floor. He plays with a great pace and a great, you know, he doesn't get sped up. And Tristan is the guy, to me, nobody talks about that has a chance to have as good a year as anybody on our team this year. We're going to need him to be on the floor as much as possible. And he's playing he's had a great summer. You know, he played with the national team in Germany for a few weeks when he was back home. He had a great 6-week stint with Coach Engelhardt through April and May, where he was really did a good job in the weight room. He's gotten bigger. He's gotten stronger. That needs to continue to develop. But he's going to be a big part of this year's team, Mark. So, and he's a guy nobody talks about. You know, it's funny. I get asked about a lot of people, and Nick Clifford and Tristan da Silva are two guys, and maybe even Luke O'Brien a little bit, that people are maybe sleeping on.
Hey, Dad.
Hey there.
Over these 11 years, we've done this many times. You're always very introspective about your process of learning to coach. What did you learn from the end of last season in your coaching style and how to approach these things?
Well, I think I try to get better every year as a coach. You know, obviously we've always known how important matchups are in the NCAA tournament. That was pretty evident, you know, when we went from playing Georgetown to playing Florida State, two totally different styles, and you know, and one we had really good success with, and the other one we didn't. You know, we were very McKinley Wright dominant last year, and have been the last 4 years, which for good reason. He was a heck of a player and made unbelievable plays and won a lot of games. Helped the University of Colorado win a lot of games. So. This year's team is going to be different because we're going to be a little bit more balanced, I think, and we've got a lot of weapons that can really hurt people offensively. So I think where we're going to miss McKinley as much is on the defensive end. But so I would say I learned that. I also learned that, you know, look, we made it back to the Pac-12 championship game for the first time since we'd won it, you know, and we came up short against retrospectively, a team, Oregon State, that was playing really, really well. We knew that. We had beaten them in Corvallis a few weeks earlier. But I think I learned that, you know, you got to have your players ready to go, you know, every night. We had such an emotional win against USC in the semifinals. I don't think I did as good a job as I could have done getting our team emotionally ready for that Oregon State game in such a quick turnaround. But we came up a little bit short. I mean, we still had a good look. I still remember Jariah Horn's, you know, three that was, you know, wide open looking. If that thing goes in, it's maybe a different outcome, and we're cutting down the nets. But it didn't happen. So you don't get those opportunities very often. So when you get them, you better make the most of them. So you just continue to learn as a coach, and hopefully I'm still doing that.
Yeah, we're going to go Jacob Tyler, and we have time for maybe one or two questions after that. Jacob, go ahead.
In your eyes, what is going to make Evan, you know, different than last year where he was just supporting McKinley? This year he's probably going to, you know, lead the team in a lot of categories, right? I mean, so what is his next step in turning himself into like a Pac-12 player of the year?
Yeah, I think Evan's always been. He's such a good teammate. You know, he's a guy that would rather pass than shoot sometimes. But we're going to need Evan to be an aggressive scorer. Not that he has to get 25 a night, but you know, we need him to be a really force down low, and he's really worked on his perimeter shot, and he can put the ball on the floor for a guy his size. He's got a very unique skill set for his body type, and so we want Evan to be an aggressive offensive player. We know how good he is defensively in the low post, and he's got great feet. He can switch on ball screens, but I think aggressiveness, we don't have to ask Jabari to be more aggressive because Jabari is aggressive by nature. Evan needs to be a little bit more aggressive offensively. Tristan needs to be a little bit more aggressive offensively. But I think Evan's going to have a breakout year. I'm not saying the numbers need to go off the chart, but we need him to be a little bit more of a scorer for us with those guys leaving.
Tad, in terms of the development of your young freshmen, KJ and Julian, how valuable is it to have a guy like Elijah, not just for your team as a whole, but in getting those guys along? Because it's likely they're not going to face a tougher defender from an opponent standpoint than they will face in Elijah in practice.
Yeah. I think, you know, I've kind of really challenged Eli. You got the perimeter guys. Get them right. talk to them, encourage them, challenge them, go at them every day, and let them know what the standard is. I've asked Evan to do the same thing with our bigs. Lawson. I mean, Evan Batty, what he's done to help Lawson Lovering grow and compete and really get better. I mean, Lawson is defensively as a post guy. He's as good as we've had here. I mean, he really is, and a lot of that is because he sees what Evan does every day. But Lawson's 7 foot tall. He's got great feet and great length, and Evan's 6'8", and he's not as long. But Lawson's such a quick learner, so I want Evan to really take those bigs kind of and challenge Jabari and Tristan and Lawson, and I want Eli to do the same thing with all the perimeter guys. And that's why leadership is so important to this team, and we've got 2 guys that are really capable.
Yeah, you have a final question out there from anybody? Okay, Jacob, go ahead.
What did you think when Jabari broke the backboard in Costa Rica?
I thought, well, the game's over, and I hope we can play the next night, because that was the 3rd game in 4 games. But yeah, that was a great trip. I think that experience really helped Jabari. We talk all the time. One of the biggest challenges I have in coaching in 2021 is the effect that social media has on our players and their mental makeup and how the world looks at them and feels about them. Because, it used to be just don't pick up the paper if you don't want to hear it. Now it's don't pick up your phone. Well, guess what? Everybody picks up their phone. So Jabari experienced maybe some negative feedback on that, and I think it was an eye-opener for him, and I'm glad it happened in the summer in Costa Rica, and something he can learn from and the rest of our players can learn from, because I do think as this season goes on, when things don't go well, the public is going to let our players know about it. That's just the nature of the world we live in, which is unfortunate, and the players have to be able to handle that and navigate that world. And I wish they would do what I do, which is you don't even look at it. But I know that's not the case. So if you're going to look at it, you better be able to handle it. So that's another challenge we're going to have as this season unfolds.
Okay. Thanks, Coach.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.